We opened up a video analysis gate for our community and we got plenty of ring muscle up videos sent in. Pick 7 videos. So in those videos, there are 3 key themes, but there's also 1 or 2 additional ones that I'm going to touch on as well. These key themes that I'm talking about are bottlenecks. So moving well means expending less energy, getting more reps, and being able to build up that volume as well. If you're grinding through ring muscle ups, if you've not got them yet, we're going to dive into why that could be with those 3 key themes that we've found from looking through the videos. So I'm going to make sure you come away with this with some cues that you can implement into your own training and help you get to the point where you're not just getting ring muscle ups and trickling through them, but you're able to link reps more effectively. So we're going to look at this long kip to high catch framework. So the 3 pillars of this are toes to the horizon. All right. So what we mean by this is we want, if you imagine the horizon in front of you, on the wall, like you want to kick with your feet to that point where that happens. We've got Cormac here. You can see he leads with his knees. We need you to be able to lead with your feet, all right, and look to kick that horizon, look to get your toes to that horizon, and that starts to create this weightless window that makes that transition in the next part that much easier. Okay, so you'll notice common themes from the athletes here to begin with, just kind of not staying as long as what they should through the kip, and they either lose power because of it. It makes the transition much harder because they don't have that weightlessness to take advantage of. All right, so Cormac, that's definitely something for you to work on. Hannah as well. So Hannah's in a position where she doesn't have as many reps yet, but she's still, if we just quickly go back, slowly, it just comes up a little bit too much with breaking at the knees. We just want to stay that bit longer through the kip as well. Then we've got John, similar thing. He doesn't come as high with his feet, but he's strong so that he can muscle through the reps. Okay, whereas Hannah wasn't as strong, so she's obviously kind of a little bit more limited by that kip, which for her compared to the lads is better because she's got to utilize that more, but she's not as strong, so she can't get away with being able to muscle through the reps like the guys can. We've got Jack here as well. Again, he's quite low with his feet, similar to John with where he kicks similar point to John with where his feet get to. Like the horizon would be higher than that. We want to think like, that kind of straight in front of you, the wall. Okay, so kicking the wall in front of you, and we kind of still have toes pointing down toward the floor. So what that does is it creates this space. So if you kick high enough, like to the horizon, to say this is your feet, and they've come up, they've kicked through, it then gives space to then extend your hips, okay, and then that creates that weightlessness feeling, that weightlessness window. All right, so that's the first thing. That's the first pillar, the first theme that we need to really look to focus on. Next is this pull to ears. So after we've done that kind of kick to the horizon and extended our hips, we then need to create a lot of space to be able to push down on the rings. So really taking advantage of this weightlessness. So I'm going to show you a few drills in a second, but by pulling the rings to your ears here, it then allows all this space to push down on, right? Whereas if you just pull to your chest, you've much less space to pull down on. So let's have a look at the next few videos again, focusing on that pull to your ears. So we can see here that Cormac is pretty much just pulling to his chest, and that means he catches pretty low. Like you can see he's kind of in that position when he catches his dips. Then next up, John again. So again, similar thing where he catches it pretty low, And if we look to where he's pulling, like he pulls a little bit higher, but higher than his chest, but it's still not as high as probably what we want to exaggerate and work on, okay? Which he is fatigued as well, but just by kind of doing that more often, getting that really dialed in, that will really, really help. We can see here that Kieran also, we want him to lead with his feet, kick to the horizon more, but with Kieran, he really needs to kind of look to refine that kip. So keeping more tension in the backswing. You can see like a bit loose there when he kind of scorpions more. That tells me that really loses a lot of tension in his backswing. And kicking through, ideally, he leads with his feet more before extending his hips. Okay, again, pulls to his chest and just about manages to squeeze through on the rings. Okay, so that's Kieran. Next up, we've got Jack again. So we've already talked about kicking the horizon. For Jack, you can see, again, pulling more to the chest, and he's not able to take advantage of that weightlessness because his feet obviously aren't coming high enough to create that space to extend his hips, to really create that weightlessness, as we've already said. And with that, because he can't create that weightlessness, can't pull to his ears as much, get that space to push down on the rings, and then obviously just that bit too low, you know, with being able to get through the transition. So if he pulls more to his ears, he's going to have more space to push down on the rings, and still that push down helps you go up vertically, which is what we really, really want. All right. I'm just going to come back to this ring push to the floor. So how these three kind of interlink is when you kick up, creates that space, you extend your hips, you start that feeling of weightlessness. Okay. If you don't kick high enough, or if you don't kick high enough, then you have less space, and you aren't able to take as much advantage of the hip extension, which helps to create that weightlessness. Or if you're in Hannah's case, where you try and in some ways maybe kick too high, you end up in this L position in the catch. You see it there. If I just roll back there, where it makes it super hard to come through that transition. So it's really important we just kick to the horizon. The pull to the ears, like we said, creates that space to then push down the rings. Now that's going to be a really fast pull to the ears before you push down, and that push down has got to be really, really aggressive. All right, because ideally we catch the rings close to this 45-degree angle, and that helps you ready to kind of kip out the dip. And when I say 45-degree angle, you know, if you end up in this position before then having to transition, it's going to take, like we've got here with Hannah, you know, it's going to take you really long to transition through the rings, whereas if you're close to this 45-degree angle, it's going to be much quicker, it's going to be much, much easier. Okay, so that is like the big thing with the push down. So it's like kick to the horizon, pull to the ears, push down on the rings, and that's what we're looking for. And you can learn to do these on the floor first and get them dialed in, and then you can do these same drills on high rings as well. Okay, so if I just kind of show you here, we're going to do ring to ears, and here, you know, she's even pulling higher than her ears. Okay, so that creates loads of space, which then if we look at the next drill, we've got ring to ears and then a push down. And obviously this is going to be exaggerated. You know, when you go through these reps on the rings, you're not going to be able to pull all the way back here, but the higher we can pull and then push down, the much more space we're going to have to take advantage of that weightlessness. And then it kind of leads on to this, you know, foot assisted up start. So we've got the position here where she kick to the horizon. She then extends the hips, which helps with that weightlessness, pulls to the ears before then pushing down and sitting through at the top, which is ideally what we want in the muscle up. And you'll see that you're catching it above a 90-degree angle here, which is going to make that dip much, much easier. Okay, so looking at the fixes, if your feet are in front of you in the catch, you're going to miss that high catch. So if we just come back to Hannah, here we go. So that's like probably the most exaggerated because she has to utilize the kip more because she's not got the strength. So here you can see that catching with her feet in front, her shoulders are pretty much parallel to the floor there, and that slows down the dip. That makes it a really hard grind to get out that dip. She does pretty well, but it makes it difficult. If your feet are in front of you in that catch position, you've missed your opportunity to catch your reps high. We need you catching high so you can kip out of the dip immediately. So that's the first thing. So that's that L-sit trap. And it's not just Hannah that does it. If we look to Cormac as well, decided not to play. So you can see that Cormac does it as well. Here, feet are still out in front of him. Whereas we want them feet to be down and underneath you. Okay. So that's the first like key thing, that L-sit position that people end up in because of not hitting those positions with those kind of 3 pillars that we've already mentioned. If we just scoot through, in Hannah, if you look at John, again, just feet are that little bit out in front, quite slow to bring his legs and feet down and underneath him, which we need to be able to do and be fast at doing. All right, so that's the first thing. And we can see here Jack ends up in this L position as well, which makes it, again, like really tricky to get out of that position. All right, so if we come to the next one. So the next thing we're looking at here is that power in your kip. And you can even see from this angle that Cormac, he has that bit of a scorpion, okay? So cutting the arch short or can't like get in that position where he stays nice and long, so he's just losing that kind of pendulum power that we create there. That's where it could be like a movement thing that's going on, so that's why we need to make sure we stay on top of the movement mechanics. Might be a bit of habit as well. So this is something that you can train, staying longer in this kit when doing, your toes to bar, do them straight legged, get that long lever kind of dialed in. All right. And because you can't take as much advantage of the long lever in your kip, that's where you end up muscling it more. So we want you to stay, aim for the horizon, in front of you and behind you when you're doing your kip swings. And again, you can see here that John just kept cutting that kip short. There, you can just see it. And again, ideally, it's this nice long lever we'd have like this. Okay. So that's what we want to be aiming for. And again, you can see it with Kieran too. Just see here. Again, like losing a lot of tension in his backswing. Quite stiff in his thoracic, which we're going to touch on a little bit more in a second. Okay, which doesn't help with that, being able to keep that power through the kip. And then the really big kind of efficiency killers, and I know Jack really struggles with it, is a really like stiff thoracic. And you can see here, Jack has really straight upper back, and then he arches a lot in his lower back, and it makes it really hard to utilize a good kip, and it just puts a bit more stress on the shoulders. Jack's had issues with his shoulders in the past with kipping work, and ideally we'd have like a nice curve like this, so there'd be a nice curve throughout your entire back, but because he's got a stiff thoracic, he kind of really struggles to utilize a powerful kip. And same for Chris here. So Chris is super stiff in his upper back. So if we look at this now, like he can't really get any extension you know, through his abs. Like he's really blocked with his upper back. So for Chris, I would actually suggest that he gets a movement assessment, because that will help to unlock his kipping potential like much more effectively, because it would be specific to him. All right. The other thing with Chris is, and we touch on it a bit more in a second with Millie, is when he drops down, kind of falls back. All right, and that throws the rhythm of his swing off as well. So we're going to touch on this a little bit more with Millie now. So we've got Millie here. Again, she could stay a little bit longer in a kip as well, but like I can see from looking at her reps and how much power and how like snappy they are, that she does have quite a lot of power in a kip. Okay, but again, she ends up in this L position here, which makes that transition really, really difficult. Okay, she needs to take more advantage of that. So she's got a good kick to the horizon there, probably comes a little bit too high. We want to see that pull to the ears, so that extension of the hips, and then that pull to ears a little bit sooner for Millie, before pushing down, so that she doesn't end up in this parallel to the floor position for as long as what she does. Ideally, rather than this position here, we would have more this angle, because again it would be easier to transition, whereas there we've got to sit all the way up. All right, but Millie kind of mentioned about like being able to link reps. She said she can consistently get singles, but then really struggles to link reps. All right, so for Millie, when she's going to link reps, you can see that when she drops down, as she drops, she kind of leans back a little bit, where I want her to stay a little bit more upright, but again, she ends up in this L position when she drops. And I want her to be in a hollow position when she drops, because when she reaches full extension with her arms, let's just go down here, she's got to wait, okay, until her legs come down and underneath her, before she can go into that arch. So she's got to wait much longer, whereas if she dropped straight into a hollow like this, she doesn't have to wait as long. So because she's got to wait that like split second longer, the rings are in not quite the right position to keep that rhythm through her reps, and that kind of throws it off. So the combination of Millie struggling to link reps is dropping down in this L position, but then also trying to find a huge kip and trying to rely too much on a really, really big kip to get her up into the next one. But again, because her feet come kind of because she doesn't pull to her ears and push down as much, she can't like take advantage of that kip and that power that she has got the potential with. All right, so I think to summarize with this one on Millie is making sure that when you are looking to link reps, drop down in that hollow position, okay, rather than an L position, because then the rings are more likely going to be in the right position that you want them to be, right position that you want them to be to go into the next rep. All right, so there's there's a test that I want you guys to be able to do. I want you to try filming 2 reps. Okay, you're going to film 1 rep and just focus on pulling to your chest, and then you're going to do another rep where you focus on pulling to your ears and then pushing down. And you might play around with the low ring drills first and just going through these drills we kind of touched on before you apply them to the high rings. But I want you to give it a try and just see and feel what the difference is between the two. See which one puts your shoulders higher than the rings, and I think you'll notice quite a big difference when you do apply this and you are able to do it. Okay, so yeah, coming back to the 3 key pillars: kick to the horizon, toes to the horizon, pull to your ears, push down on the rings. And those are the 3 things that I want you to really, really focus on technique-wise. For the guys who, struggle with that kip, like hit your movement mechanics, make sure you're doing your movement mechanics. Please do share, guys, your ring muscle-ups in a few weeks, or the video of the test that I said to do, with test pulling to your chest and test pulling to your ears. Okay, before pushing down, and just send in the difference so we can really, really look to see that. All right. And I think just a closing thought on this is, like, commitment to the detail here will lead you to the excellence in the result. So if you get these small details right, I think you'll see a big difference quite quickly in your ring muscle ups. So yeah, hopefully that is helpful. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop me a message.